The Gnomes of New Hope, Zack and Zebby's Grand Adventure. The Gnomes of New Hope, a series of storybook adventures with illustrations. Gnomes in a Nutshell, an e-Storybook based on the stage musical from the creative mind of Arthur Greisiger. The Gnomes of New Hope live in the forests and hills high above the great river, near a place the big people call New Hope, Pennsylvania. All of Gnomanity has their attention focused on the citizens of Gnomeville, who are hosting the first ever Gnome Fest. We invite you to meet the Gnomevillians, Gnomanians, Nomads, and cast of characters and places who make up the stories of the Gnomic Tales, which includes the musical theater version of Zack and Zebby's Grand Adventure, presented by Image of the Mind Studios. The Gnomes of New Hope is published in both hard copy and e-Storybook editions. Comprised of nearly 800 pages, it is published in a 3-volume, 7-book set with wonderful illustrations highlighting the exciting story of Zack and Zebby's Grand Adventure. Based on the libretto of the stage musical, this is a companion narrative addition to the cinematic and theatrical versions. Written as a storytelling book with delightful artwork by Jency Latta, it is intended to be a fun read-out-loud book. Gnomes in a Nutshell, a read-only e-Storybook, provided online via a subscription. Members will have access to all materials as they are created. New books, updates, animations, the Gnomic Tales, and special offers. Or, the Gnomes have created an acorn pendant, which contains a micro SD card with a USB adapter. Available for purchase only after the entire series is published. The complete e-Storybook, designed to fit on your bookshelf. Gnomes in a Nutshell, to be released upon completion of all the illustrations for the 7-book collection. Reserve your copies anytime. The Gnomes of New Hope is made in the United States of America. It is published by IMS Publishing, a division of Image of the Mind Studios in Southampton, Pennsylvania. Book 1, An Introduction to The Gnomes of New Hope, now published in 2 hard copy editions. Order yours today. Begin your collection of the entire 7-book series and music. Book 2, taking us on the first part of Zack and Zebby's Grand Adventure, is nearing publication. Welcome. You are invited to explore the history of Gnomanity, for the gnomification process has begun, and we hope you will be officially designated a friend of Gnomeville. Special Limited World Premiere Edition, the Hand-Stitched Collection. Intended as a celebration of the official release and introduction of each book in the series. Hand-stitched books are only available on a limited basis. But no quantities are assigned, and they may also be secured as signed and numbered collectible editions. The MSRP does not apply to collectible books. All product lines, along with an assortment of other benefits, are offered to our vested partners as a means of funding various aspects of production. Refer to the blog IMS Publishing or contact Arthur Greisiger at the email address below. The Gnomes of New Hope, an illustrated storybook. The published editions originated as an e-Storybook that grew into a 3-volume set. As an introduction to the Gnomes, we offer you the first published book in a series of 7. Based largely on the stage musical and other stories taken from the Gnomic Tales, Chronicles of Gnomanity, the Little Folk of the Forest, the published books are available in both gnome-sized and big people editions. Before presenting you with this introduction to the Gnomes of New Hope, I'd like to explain somewhat what this project is and how it came about. But if you'd like to skip this preface and go directly to Gnomeville, you will find that the page background is different for that portion of this book, so it will be easy to find. The preface in each version varies, and although there are a few differences, the story remains the same. The artwork used in the illustrations is also the foundation for our work in theatrical set design, puppetry, and cinema. And we expect to create sing-along videos as part of the entire score of recordings from the musical stage show, along with animated films of each scene, which we expect to offer as upgrades to the e-Storybook. Details about the growth of the Gnomes of New Hope can be found in the online blog at www.thegnomesofnewhope.blogspot.com. Briefly, though, it began as an idea for a simple puppet show, which somehow turned into a full-stage musical. The illustrations in this storybook were originally intended to enhance the design of the stage libretto. But as the story grew and more characters came to inhabit Gnomeville, there also was a greater need to define the society of gnomes, because there simply had to be absolute justification for the events and relationships that were developing. So, the real purpose of this storybook was to establish a foundation for the story being written for the stage. But also, as it turned out, a narrative storybook came into being and expanded the story of the gnomes. You see, rather than simply presenting the libretto, as I had thought would occur, the environment and circumstances surrounding the gnomes who inhabit Gnomeville, and the story behind Zack and Zebby's grand adventure, began to emerge, and it all started to make absolute sense, since my objective in writing a storybook was to offer a way to become more familiar with the story and the characters, so that when we do present the show on stage, those of you attending might enjoy greater involvement by having gotten to know the gnomes who live in Gnomeville. Reading the storybooks will give you the advantage of knowing facts which cannot be presented on stage. So, Volume 1 of the storybook serves as an introduction to the Gnomes of New Hope, while Volumes 2 and 3 make up Acts 1 and 2 of the stage musical, Zack and Zebby's Grand Adventure. You will find that there are many elements in the published editions not revealed in the stage show. Idiosyncrasies of the characters and environments, historical elements, subplots, and intricacies of the visual aspects of the artwork. These are some examples of what all the storybook editions have to offer, and all the published editions are derived from the same illustrated e-Storybook. Being a filmmaker and theatrical designer, I tend to write in a way that is descriptive for cinema and theater. Well, I wanted a story that did not include any technical designs, unlike the libretto. A story that somebody could have fun reading. I thought an illustrated storybook might be cool, so I decided to focus on the art and design of a full-sized book. But that became difficult and costly to produce. Then I came up with the idea to produce a smaller gnome-sized book. But even that was not quite working. It just wasn't coming together. So I decided to redirect my energy toward illustrating the libretto. Here's how a storybook really came about. After some time of writing the story of the libretto, I found that I was building a backstory that turned out to be larger than Zack and Zebby's Grand Adventure. And so, the Gnomic Tales were born, a narrative history of gnomanity, without any layout, design, or illustrations, caused me to create a series of storybooks, all for the purpose of writing the libretto. The illustrations were intended as a means of visualizing the libretto for design purposes, while the narrative was intended as a research tool for crafting the story of the libretto, because certain aspects of the story had to be explained. Only after the narrative was far enough along did I start applying the illustrations to the early writings for a storybook. But the cost of printing drafts of artwork and ever-changing layout designs was draining my resources. Suddenly, the idea of an e-Storybook came to me. That way, the story, layout, and the artwork could be perfected without printing anything. Bingo! It became very clear that doing a layout for an illustrated e-Storybook was the way to go. Well, when I put that e-Storybook on an e-pad, it looked great. Really great. I couldn't believe it. I wondered if that design would also work for the gnome-sized books. Amazingly, it did work. Then I wondered if that layout would work for big people books too. With some modifications to the overall design, it has worked for all editions of the books. However, the books in this collection are not individual stories. They are a continuing story. As the story was written, It turned out to be a rather large volume, and since the gnome-sized book can only hold so many pages, each book in the collection leads into the next. The storybook art is the design basis for what we are creating for the stage show. It's also exciting to think of the illustrations coming to life with animation, puppetry, and sing-along videos. We're also looking at applying animatronics and green screen techniques to convey and enhance the music too. So, it will be fun to watch the Gnomes of New Hope come alive on stage and screen. We hope that you may like to collect all of the music from the stage show and the short animated films. So, we will make all of this available to you as soon as we can. And we will strive to make it fun to put all the pieces of this puzzle together. You can be sure we will hide some special things in there too. So, here is the e-Storybook based on the Big People edition of The Gnomes of New Hope. It all begins with Book 1, an introduction to the Gnomes of New Hope, and continues through 6 more books that are presented in a 3-volume set of companion editions to the stage show, Zack and Zebby's Grand Adventure. But as Zack and Zebby find out, the history of Gnomanity is comprised of a collection of other stories, the Gnomic Tales, the chronicles of the little folk of the forest, which are equally enthralling to explore. Portions of those tales have been included here, while more stories are still being discovered and will become part of the collection after they are translated into Big People language. Until that happens, and while we complete the remaining artwork needed for the series, here is Volume 1. Serving as art director, I worked with artist Jency Latta for more than 5 years to create these storybook illustrations. We found interesting ways to create the art and assemble the array of components which I used to design what you see here. In addition to the storybooks, we are also creating other fun things like garden gnomes, games, coloring books, furniture, gnomic arts and crafts, and all sorts of great stuff, including Nuthead's famous brew, Gnome Nog. Well, since the storybooks are based on a stage musical, here's how the music came about. Since I was working on a number of productions for kids, the original concept of a simple puppet show began to grow into a children's theater edition. And in the natural progression of things, music was added to make things more interesting. So I began composing music to go along with the show. After a while, it became clear that this was a complex endeavor and having another musician involved was advisable. And so I invited Sean Rose to join in the effort. It took us a few years to get it together, but after working 20 hours each week for 8 years, we composed a total of 70 songs, arranged for a 24-piece orchestra pit ensemble. The music includes SATB vocal numbers, dance numbers, instrumental backdrops, and set change bridges needed in a stage show, each of which is assigned a number. We are quite pleased with the results we have achieved. Work is continuing on a 3-movement symphony, piano adaptations, lead sheets, and orchestral scoring for performance and publication. And since the musical stage play, Zack and Zebby's Grand Adventure, tells the story mostly with songs, the lyrics on which the music is based are included in volumes 2 and 3 of the illustrated e-Storybook, which tells the story from a slightly different perspective. The gnome-sized and Big People editions are both an exact copy of the e-Storybook, only printed. Look for the release of all the music, including the first recorded lyrical song, completely. We're working to make the e-Storybook, the music, and sing-along animated videos available online. So watch for updates at the blog address below. Zack and Zebby's Grand Adventure. It was so inadvertent. The next gnomic tale to be told will likely be Artemis and the Stone of Wisdom. The gnomes of New Hope live deep in the forest lands and up in the hills high above the great river, in an area known by the humans as New Hope, Pennsylvania. They have lived there with their forest friends for generations upon generations. Their presence has been unknown to the humans, though not entirely unfelt. Theirs is a quaint little village amongst the trees, for Gnomeville has the same magical qualities that surround these forest folk wherever they are. It seems they have the unique ability to become virtually invisible to the eyes of all those who would threaten the peaceful existence of gnomes everywhere. It is not known if this ability is a result of real magic or whether gnomes are just very good at hiding. But nonetheless, unless you are a welcome visitor to Gnomeville, you will never be able to find the place. For you see, the forest folk who dwell there are a very special kind of people. Not elves, not fairies, certainly not hobbits, dwarves, or trolls. They are a different breed. They are known as the Gnomes of New Hope. Well, as you can see from the page numbers, we have skipped over the contents of the introduction for the purpose of giving you a sample of the page design and how it sounds when it is narrated. But since so many things in the world around the gnomes are changing, then gnomanity must change too. The Council of Elder Gnomes know this, but they try as best they can to shield the citizens of the secret little gnomunicipality. Gnomes are, in general, very simple folk, but there are those in the gnomosphere who are trying to understand how they fit into this changing world. This is important to the future of gnomanity. What did they do in olden times when changes came upon them? No one seems to know, because gnomes have never really kept records. They've always only told stories. Only recently have gnomes begun writing in books. Very few gnomes have learned how to read and write, or how to even make books. So not very many gnomes, and very few in Gnomeville, can read or write. They've always left that up to the wise one, the master gnome. Well, these are issues that must be left for another time. For now, the Gnomes of New Hope are all happily engaged in preparing their village for the first ever Gnome Fest. And they are expecting gnomes from far and gnomes from wide to come to Gnomeville, the center of all gnomanity. And so ends this introduction to the Gnomes of New Hope. We hope you will look forward to reading volumes 2 and 3, which are illustrated companion editions to the musical theater production Zack and Zebby's Grand Adventure, adapted from Acts 1 and 2 of the libretto, and include the lyrics to the music. Future editions of the e-Storybook, Gnomes in a Nutshell, will allow the music to be downloaded and may also include animated sing-along videos. Please explore the blog for the Gnomes of New Hope for discussions on production activities, our assortment of product lines, updates to the e-Storybook, sample videos, ticket sales, and ways that you can participate too. Look for the future release of these products: Gnome Nog, Nuthead's famous brew; Nog Logs, perfect for dunking in Gnome Nog; Gnome Nuts, marvelous munchies; and also the e-Storybook Gnomes in a Nutshell, the story of Zack and Zebby's Grand Adventure. Look for a continuing collection of gnome-sized books revealing the stories surrounding life in Gnomeville and its citizens, and more stories from the Gnomic Tales. Our collection of gnomic products are based on the illustrations and brought to you by the Gnomeville Arts and Crafts Guild. Black and white coloring books, window stickers, trading cards, audio CDs, puzzles, board and video games, Gnomeville playset and DVD products, and other products of various sorts, including a collection of limited edition gnomic art, figurines, puppets, and garden gnomes, handicrafts and ceramics, but most especially sorta gnomic chairs and other sorta gnomic products. This special offer made to our producing partners is now available to anyone purchasing a limited release edition. The Gnomes of New Hope, signed and numbered collectible garden gnomes. The Citizens of Gnomeville, Constable Virgil Warren. Included is a gnome-sized copy of Book 1. Reserve your edition. Receive the benefits of special offers only available to our producing partners. They are cast in cement, hand-painted, and clear-coated for weather protection. This sponsorship release is limited to 250 units. Here on the left, you see an order form for the Citizens of Gnomeville, a limited edition collectible series. Please request information via email on all limited edition offerings prior to ordering or sending money, as terms and pricing are subject to change. Look for our exhibition of limited edition lithographs. They are signed and numbered, sized at 12 inches by 18 inches. All limited edition products are set at 250 units. The lowest numbers are reserved as a gift to our investors. However, collectors may secure the first option on a series number by prepaying for a minimum of 3 releases. Lithographs will be released and distributed upon the official opening of the gallery exhibition and stage show. Please request additional information and pricing via email. The Gnomeville Arts and Crafts Guild proudly recommends the Knothole's famous Gnome Nog, a secret combination of nutty flavors brewed to perfection in Gnomeville, the center of all gnomanity. For further information and suggestions, or to reserve future signed limited editions, contact Image of the Mind Studios, 1325 Industrial Boulevard, Southampton, Pennsylvania, 18966, or contact us via email at the address below. Here on the right you find the limited edition certification. This book, Volume 1 of the Big People's Book, An Introduction to the Gnomes of New Hope, is certified by the author to be part of the signed and numbered limited edition of 250 units. It is the first edition and part of the industry review package. This edition is distinguished by a hand-stitched binding, certified to be published and bound by the author, composer, and lyricist. And there is a commendation below for the binding date, the book number, the signature of the illustration artist, and the signature of the co-composer arranger. There are a number of certifications as shown on the previous page for different applications, and one may be included in the unlimited books in the event that there are signings at bookstores, in which event this page on the left will be part of that as well. Present this book at the box office for any show and receive one free complimentary admission ticket or 25% off any general admission ticket. Reserved seating excluded, one-time use only, and it is contingent upon availability and at the theater's discretion. And finally, the following credits are contained on the inside back cover of the hard copy books. The stories, environments, history, characters, dialogue, and lyrics of the Gnomes of New Hope were conceived of and written by Arthur Greisiger, a theater artist, photographer, and cinema auteur who by necessity and compulsion is also a writer and musician. The process expanded when Sean Rose, an accomplished pianist and talented musician, joined in the effort as a partner in composing the music for the stage show. Arthur and Sean began working on the Gnomes in 2005. Jency Latta, a most talented artist as evidenced by her work here, joined the team as the illustrator, and beginning in 2008, Arthur and Jency have worked to shape the look of all you see here. The Gnomes of New Hope originated in 1990 as an idea for the New Hope Arts Festival in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. It soon took on the shape of a puppet show, which became transformed into a children's theater piece with music. And then it unexpectedly grew into a fully orchestrated stage musical. This illustrated volume serves as the introduction and the first in a series designed as a collection of both gnome-size and big people books, each illustrated in this manner. This series is intended to reveal different aspects of the life and stories of the citizens of Gnomeville and the gnomic tales that make up the history of gnomanity. As a way to say thank you for taking the time to consider this presentation, I've added something a little special in here for you. Zach and Fernie have known each other all their lives, and while Zach has often thought,
if a gnomette could be my best friend, it would certainly be Fernie.
Fernie, however, has other thoughts and feelings for Zach. She has waited so patiently for Zach to realize his feelings for her. But she's starting to think,
maybe I was wrong. Why is it taking so long?
Suddenly I'm free to let my heart be open to love you completely, for I see what is true.
And I see it too.
How you make life complete for me, for you make me feel life flow so sweetly. So I don't know, but I'm letting go of my fears completely. Having you here close beside me
makes me feel whole.
and me brave and bold.
For now I have
you beside me. Oh, together we find security. For it's true that you have shown to me the magic of life, its mystery. Such is love.
Such is love for us.
So to the stars up above we proclaim we're in love. For it's true that I
Heart
find
rules my mind.
and both love you completely.
You may have noticed that the pages on that last section of sheet music were different than the other pages because that, in fact, was an older design. However, thank you for listening to the presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to contact me at any time at the addresses shown here if you're interested in being involved in any way.